Answering yours.
Oh, it's
Welcome,
Tammy.
everybody. Hi, Dr. Rob.
So I have a funny story for you before we get started.
You sound muted, or
Oh,
is
can
it
you hear
me?
me? Can you
Now
hear
I
me
can hear you
now?
better.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I have
that's
a funny
better.
story for you before we get started. So
Okay.
I took a shower this morning. I got up, I looked in the mirror, and I was horrified because I realized that I'm so used to seeing myself on Zoom where
Oh,
everything is kind of like fixed perfectly and I look
yes.
amazing. I looked in
Yeah.
the mirror and I thought, oh my God, because I
I
spent so
don't
much
look
time
like
on
my
here.
Zoom image. Yes.
I should put
I
that
can
up.
actually relate. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Good to
Zoom
see
does
you.
flattering things. So, yes. Yeah. It's great to see you. I hope you had a great weekend too.
Yes, ma'am.
We've got some special edition webinars coming up again. Dr. Eddie is joining uh, this this week, Thursday, so on July 31st, and then he's joining again the following week. So Dr. Eddie is 2 weeks in a row. But we've got Candace Christensen talking about neurodivergence and sex addiction coming up in August. So in the next few weeks, we've got a number of different things again. I've been happy to find some unique topics and things. So stay tuned, watch the schedule. And Dr. Rob's been recording podcasts too, so there'll be new podcasts. We went through a little transition. I should have said this before we got on the recording, but we went through a little transition with production, and so there was a little gap. But now we're getting things back on track. So
Yes, and I wrote them a letter, these podcast folks, and I said, and by the way, I'm sorry, guys, but I would say to Tammy, you're right, because this platform is a mess. It's just so, so difficult, and it shouldn't be. So, because you can't get help unless you sign on, but if you can't sign on, you can't get help. And anyway, that's a good start. Anyway,
yes,
these young people.
yes. Okay, so the
Okay.
first question, Dr. Rob, is betrayer and addict here, 94 days clean. What is the best way to recover from honest mistakes with my partner? I have had 3 straight weeks of honest mistakes that are boundary breaking and triggering to my partner, and I'm working hard to break this pattern. I want to respect and empathize with my partner. So I'm reading this as the addict partner,
Yeah.
the betraying partner,
It's the addict.
asking the question. Yeah.
Right. So, um, really, this depends on what defines an honest mistake. So, a couple of things, and I can just tell you how we look at it, and spouses may agree, spouses may not agree. I think it is absolutely our responsibility if we act out. I go to the porn shop or I look at the porn, I call my fair partner, whatever that is. I need to go to my spouse and say, I need to sit down with you and talk to you. First, I think you should get advice and feedback. So you don't call them and say, oh my God, I didn't mean it. You want to approach them in a way but you can do all that in 24 hours of having made this error. So seriously, if you fall on your face, the most important thing I hear from every spouse, and Tammy for sure, I just want to know what's going on. And so that is the greatest violation to them, I think, is that they're leading a life and they don't know what's going on in their lives until they find out. So that's how trust is destroyed. So yeah, I think if you have a slip, you absolutely need to tell them. Um, if you walk down the street and you look at someone, if you drive through a neighborhood you shouldn't have, if you think about what you really want to do is this or that, your thoughts and your feelings are not something you should report to your spouse. Otherwise, they become a police officer. And I've had spouses say, well, you looked over there. What does it mean? Or you act, it doesn't help, And I think Tammy would agree that what spouses are always trying to do, and understandable, is find their stability in what's going on with the addict. And I understand, and this sort of falls in the same category of asking question after question after question. And by the way, we always know if I'm just going to ask this last question and then I'm done. Of course, questions bring up into questions because the answers are not going to make you feel better. You're destabilized and you're attempting to grab at the answer thinking, well, that make me feel better, but it won't. And so you just end up with another question. So this is kind of the same thing. If I tell my partner every single time I look at someone, every single time I think about acting out, every single time, that's something that I objectify someone, then they're going to be constantly triggered because that's not my spouse's job to be the person I turn to when I'm thinking about it, struggling, wondering. That's what a sponsor is for. That's what my group is for, to say, gee, I'm really struggling. And then you talk to them about it and you get solutions for how to stop struggling. And then or whatever that is, and you move forward. So the things I think spouses absolutely need to know is number one, if you've acted out. Number two, if you've lied to them. And I don't care if I said I was going to take out the garbage and I didn't. little lies, addicts, mean everything, because your spouses are thinking, well, if they're going to lie about that, what else are they going to lie about? So you have to be utterly and completely honest in the day to day. Yes, I did this. No, I didn't that. I got the groceries. I didn't. Whatever it is, I cleaned the garage. Um, I was on time. You just didn't. Whatever it is that goes on the day to day that's not honest, you have to tell them. Anything that is serious acting out, you have to tell them. But you're going to struggle. And this person's in recovery how long, Tammy? Like, what is this,
90
94 days?
94 days. Yeah.
So 3 months, by the way, you've been working on this, and you're not going to get it perfectly. You are going to look the wrong way. And spouses, if you say, were you lusting today? Or did you look at that person today? Or you look funny today? Or, you know, it leaves us in a position where we might tell you things that really are just going to triggering for no reason. Um, I understand to not know is also triggering, but I have had spouses say that. Sorry to go on and on, such a big issue, Tammy. I've had spouses say to me, I acted out and I told them. And I have a spouse say, well, I'm angry and I hate you and I can't believe you did this. So I'm not going to want to stay with you and all those important things. But ultimately, the spouse says on some level, oh, well, you're being honest with me. You were never honest with me before. So there is something about honesty around your bottom line that is essential for them to know on a whole bunch of levels. But every little thing, I think, creates more problems than it's worth. So I don't know what an honest mistake is. But anyway, Tammy, you're nodding your head. So I think I covered all the bases. Do you have a thought?
Yeah, of course I have thoughts. So that's a silly question.
Uh,
So, and I appreciate you want to respect and empathize with your partner, boundary breaking and triggering to my partner. So there are things. I was talking to an addict partner earlier today, and there were some things that he did that I would absolutely say that was triggering for your partner. Usually I'm on the other side going like, if I'm triggered, it is my job to figure out what's going on. But when there are behaviors that are absolutely triggering, that's a different thing. But if it's boundary breaking, what were the consequences? Like, if there's a boundary, there's a stated consequence. So what was the consequence? And was your partner, your betrayed partner, holding that boundary? That would be really important. I also am curious how much recovery work you are doing. Just not acting out is abstinence, and that's a start. Yay, you've got 94 days. But I also hear, I mean, one of my 12-step meetings, we talk about, the hardest part about recovery is living life. It's the stopping the behavior is one thing, but it's the
mhm.
learning to live life. And, that's why we were acting out in the first place. So, if you, especially if it's been the last 3 weeks, you're really struggling with something, I would, double up my 12-step meetings. If I was going to one a day, I'd be going to two. Yeah, I'd be calling my sponsor daily. I'd be, meeting with my therapist. So to me, it's like, there's not one like, oh, just do this. It's like, get a solid foundation underneath you, for recovery. Because, the 12 steps teaches us how to handle, we make amends. We take ownership, we make amends, we do things. And Dr. Rob was talking about lies of omission, lies of commission. If you just think, well, they don't know, and like, no one's going to catch me, that's still being dishonest, and that feeds into the not honest stuff. So to me, it's a little blurry in that, I'm curious about, what was the stated consequence, and was that, has that been engaged, and what are you doing? I mean, if I make a mistake, and I talk to addicts about this and partners too, it's like, if you come and tell me you made an honest mistake, and I would honestly pull the honest out of it, I would
Okay.
just
I made a
say,
mistake.
I made a
Mhm.
mistake. Yeah. And honest or dishonest, it still is a mistake, and it's got repercussions. Okay. So there's consequences. You broke a boundary. Okay. And here's what I'm doing. I recognize that, I wasn't being intentional. Whatever it isn't about saying the excuse and making excuses. I'm taking ownership. I'm saying, I recognize this. I need to schedule another appointment with my therapist. I need to do more work. And these are the things I'm going to do to take action, so that I'm not just, constantly coming to you and going, oh, made another honest mistake. I made another honest mistake. You should forgive me. No, all of those are dysregulating, just like Dr. Rob was talking about. Every time it's dysregulating, and you knew all along you were acting out, your partner didn't. So there's a difference in timing. Like you can go, oh my gosh, I've got 94 days, and your partner's going, what about all the years that we were
What about the 3 years
together?
before,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Hey, Tamara, one more thing I want to play through this with you. Would you ask me the following questions as a spouse? Okay.
Uh-huh.
One of the questions is, did you objectify or look at anyone today that you found attractive?
Did you objectify or look at anyone you found attractive today?
I do every day. I do. It's part of my addiction, and all I can do is tell you that I'll always, hopefully it's going to get better. I didn't act on it anyway, and if I did, I would let you know. I don't like the looking either, but I am working on it, and I'm not going to lie to you. And by the way, if they say absolutely not, trust me, every human being will go there and says, "Oh, cute butt," no matter or whatever. We're human. So to say, yeah, I looked at some people, and I take it seriously, and I am talking to someone, that is an answer to the question. Saying at 3 o'clock, I actually looked at Mary, and Mary, she's at the grocery store. That's not going to help. So my answer would be, yeah, of course I do this. Of course if it's a struggle and they aren't something specific, yeah, I think you should just generally say that. Now, Tammy, I want to pose another question to you. You and I are in a restaurant together and we're having dinner, and I'm doing this. I'm looking over your shoulder at that waiter or waitress over your butt, and I want you to say to me, are you looking at that other person? Are you objectifying them?
Are you looking at that other person? Are you objectifying them?
I am. And I'm really sorry. You're absolutely right. And I can only imagine how this is for you. And so my point is that while I wouldn't say, oh, I didn't objectify today, or I wouldn't say I've got to tell you every time, if you're sitting there with me, and I don't say, oh, well, yeah, I do that all the time, because you can't lie to them. So if they, and it's, by the way, they're not going to like it. We're not saying this to make them happy or like, we're saying this because it's what we need to do for ourselves, is to keep ourselves clean, carrying lies. So do not lie do not look your partner in the eye and lie if they just saw something happen, because it is a lie. It's not a lie to say, of course I struggle with that and I'm really working on it, but if anything really meaningful happens, you will know. And that's being honest. So anyway, thanks for taking so much time, because this is such an important question, I think. Yeah. So what's next?
Well, and it's challenging because if you expect perfection, like you stop the behaviors and now you're going to magically not ever do something, and you're never going to lie, and you're never going to whatever, like that's unrealistic expectations that defies humanity. So having, the 12-step program teaches us how to navigate this, and because we didn't have a clue. And so it's a process. We talk often about recovery takes 2 to 5 years. So great job, you're 94 days in, and to have it really be integrated, takes more time if you're doing the work. So my suggestion is lean into the healing work. Make sure you're doing everything you possibly
So
can.
you can run this by people.
Yeah. PA spouse, any recommendations for PA who is in active addiction, who also has technology addiction, and also found like almost every possible avenue to get triggered and spiral, YouTube ads and yoga, Pinterest, etc. At one point, we agreed to block off everything, including Google search, but he was dishonest about being okay with that. He's addicted to YouTube and shows, but has acted out on different streaming services.
Well, just to quickly clarify, from my perspective, he's not addicted to Pinterest. He's not addicted to Google. What he's addicted in is sex, and and looking for. And so he'll go to any platform to look for it here, to look for it here, to look for it here. He may also be completely emotionally unavailable and cut off because all he cares about is looking at stuff online. That's just the point of order. He's a sex addict. So the question that I would go to, and maybe Tim, I actually love if you started, is the first sentence, which is, any recommendations for a porn addict who's an active addiction, who also, well, first of all, you're not the addict. I assume you're the partner, right?
Yeah.
So what are they asking, Tammy, and how can you help?
Well, I think the next question is a follow-up. Is there being too restricted if his triggers are everywhere on the internet, or is it being realistically restrictive?
Well, I would say he's not in recovery. So what difference does it make?
Yeah.
You can put all the blocks, all the disagrees. Yeah. If he is in active addiction, Doesn't matter how many blocks you put on whatever. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because he will go incognito. He'll go use someone else's computer or get on his phone. Like if I am in active recovery, I might want to put, filters. I might want to, if I was working with Tammy, I might say, Tammy, I'm going to call you in the morning when I go online. I'm going to call you after to let you know I did okay. There's all kinds of ways that someone in recovery can make decisions that are informed and are best for their recovery that will make you feel better. But the rest of it, even everything you ask is sort of, I don't want to say irrelevant. I won't say that, but it isn't relevant to this situation because there's nothing you can do. He's going to do whatever he wants to do. He's going to look at whatever he wants to. And by the way, this idea just to everybody, well, it wasn't porn. It was just Instagram. I think you can find a lot of things on Instagram and TikTok and all. So if your spouse is uncomfortable, please don't justify and say, well, it's just this or it's only that. We can use, and I'm not saying you can't go online, but I think if you're in recovery, you need to have boundaries around that and structure around that your spouse knows about and they feel safe. So anyway, to me, the answer is, well, there's so much a bigger issue here than look at this or look at that, that would be my first sentence really is, what do I do if the person I love is not an active addiction, doesn't seem to care what I think? Yeah.
I agree. I mean, I don't hear any willingness to get help and really change on those issues. And so I'm with you. The tools, like filters and things like that are great when somebody's working on, and they just need a little stopgap in those couple seconds to go, do I want my sponsor to read that report and see, where I was, and I'm going to have to explain that, it just gives us a minute we can absolutely, I've learned so much about how, people can get around things. So, so there can be a false sense of security of like, oh, well, we've locked everything up, I don't care how much you lock it up. There's always ways to get more. So,
and I do want to say one more thing to you, and is that how are you taking care of yourself? You're living and involved with someone who's an active addiction, and an active addiction, we don't give a shit what's going on with you. It's more like, stop annoying me, stop asking me, I'm doing fine. So if I was living and loved somebody who was to that degree dismissive, lying, it's your problem, I would want to know, how do you take care of yourself? And I know this is a big Tammy issue because she has worked in some of the groups where they do give partners forgiveness. But do you want to say something? Because that really struck me. It's like, well, how can what a nightmare that they were living with someone who doesn't even seem to care. Do you want to expound on that for a second?
I actually recognize it. Yes. And I have suggested in the past, healthy boundaries for you, because you can't make anybody change, and I say that to addict partners too, is like, you can't make your partner change. You are responsible for your own, you can set up healthy boundaries for you. It's like the last question. It's like, okay, I as the addict crossed a boundary. Well, what was the consequence? And, and at some point, hopefully we start going like, oh, if I do that, then I'm going to cross this boundary. I'm going to have a negative consequence. But no addict changes until the pain of change is less than the pain of staying the same. And so as long as, like a partner being upset, and I wish it was different, but it isn't. You get used to the noise of like, okay, they're mad, but I'm still hanging on to this meaningless little thing because I'm scared to do the work. Not every addict gets recovery. Again, it breaks my heart because I know how good recovery is. I wish everybody would just embrace it, and they don't. So, so everybody makes a choice, but for betrayed partners, I strongly encourage setting healthy boundaries for you, so you're taking care of you regardless of what your addict partner is doing or not doing. So,
and I'll give you one short example. Are you sleeping in a bed together? Because if someone was violating my trust and doing this, I would say you need to sleep on the couch. If they continue to do that, and not because I want to punish them, because I say this a lot, and I'll take credit for it. Would you want to lie in the same bed as someone you don't trust? Would you want to have sex with someone you don't trust? So if you do not trust him, and clearly you can't, then how are you taking care of yourself that you're not in situations where you kind of get close and you get pulled apart? You have to take care of yourself in relationship to what's going on. By the way, first it would be, you don't sleep in bed with me. Second, it would be, maybe you need to stay somewhere else. It's not fair to put you in the situation where you're constantly living with anxiety. And if he doesn't care enough to want to help you feel better, I would pay attention to that.
Okay, so the next one, I am the betrayed. 33 years of staggered betrayal. Addict has multiple addictions and always refused to get any help. He finally found a CSAT who was trained by an organization that is better known for its love marriage work. After 1.5 years of seeing his CSAT and us separated, he barely seems to have made any progress. Is there anything I can say do to get him into a better, more helpful program? I brought it up once and he gushed on how great his therapist is. Yes, I too have a CSAT doing all my work and I'm ready to move on without him. Thank you for saying, because like this person's been on these before. They know where I would go with it. So, but yeah, honestly, I've said this before with addicts. If they love their therapist, I want them to respect them. I want them to have accountability with them. If they love their therapist, it's almost like I'm not 100%, but there's a little bit of me that goes, I'm not sure this is the right person for you because they're probably not holding your feet to the fire. And that's what I'm reading with this is like they're not changing. Um, so I will say, we have a moving on alone drop-in group for partners who have one foot out the door, have left or have been left. That might be a drop-in group for you to consider. It's free, but that's a space where they're talking more about, like it's not about repairing the relationship. So, um, and yes, like we have an expert residential treatment program, and we have had people who have arrived on our doorstep, shall we say, that were given the, you know, treatment or divorce. I'm not saying you have to do that, but I mean, when the pain of change is less than the pain of staying the same, the addict will change. But right now, it's like, well, I gotta love my therapist. I'm not
But,
minimizing or making light of it, but
well, we don't
it's
know how
it's
he's saying it, but the
challenging.
point he's
Right,
defending a situation that's not
right,
helpful.
right. You're
So,
right.
a couple of things,
Yeah,
bunch of things. You don't know what he and the therapist are saying. So you
true.
don't know if he's lying about it, if the therapist said this, and this, and he just didn't follow through. So we don't really know what went on. And guess what? Addicts will lie. Well, my therapist said, so a couple of things. While it is a sacred place for me and my therapist, and I would have to give permission for my spouse to talk to me, the therapist, about the case, whatever. If I'm a spouse, I can call the therapist and say, you know what, I'm concerned about this. They don't have to call you back. They don't have to re-engage. They probably can't, but they'll hear you. Now, they may say, oh, yeah, that's what you said, Joe. Your wife is just like, who knows what they're going to say. But I would say to you, and I wrote down this comparison, is that if I had deep pain inside of me, physical, so something was really hurting, and I went to my general practitioner and he said, well, just come see me for a while. I think it'll get better. Here, take some, Tums. After a few weeks, if I was still in pain, you'd probably say, you know what, I think you need to see a specialist because that's not getting better. So you said a couple of things here. You said this person is better known for love and marriage work. That's great. But this is not about love and marriage. This is about violation and betrayal. You're not even in love and marriage at this moment. You're more in, how do we even find a way to go forward? So um, I, I would do two things. One is I would call the CSAT. I would let him know that I called them with these concerns because I don't want to keep the secret. Um, and then the second thing is, I think it is perfectly okay for you to find a way. How do I say this? It's perfectly okay for you to not feel like there's any progress, and you are concerned because you can put it this way: you're still in pain. Your appendix still needs to come out, and you're not doing anything about it. Ultimately, though, before you go on to, I'm ready to move on without him, and I understand that. I would always want to feel like I did everything I could because there's nothing worse. And I say to the guys too, it's, well, I don't want to be in this relationship, but you're acting out. How can you really decide? You need to get sober and then be able to say, do I want this or not? But right now you don't know what. So, it may well be that he is simply not in a place to be able to say these things or work on these things for you. So, by the way, do you have a therapist? Do you have
Yes,
someone?
yeah,
Okay,
this person has a CSAT. And I
right,
was thinking too, the other thing would be
right.
ask for a meeting with both of your CSATs and both of you. So it's a conjoint
Hmm.
therapy session, so that you can, everybody can get on the same page and you both have support. That could be another option.
Or you can say to your therapist, I'd like you to talk to his therapist. And you can say to your husband, I have signed a release and I want your therapist, I want you to sign one so our therapists can talk to each other. And
Yes.
that, and then your therapist say, well, I don't understand. And their therapist says, well, I've been telling them, and you don't really know what's going on. So I would actually have them talk to each other and express my concerns to my therapist. And then, we'll see what comes back. But I got to tell you, if you're defending your illness, that really concerns me. What I would want to say to you is you're right. I'm still struggling with this. I've been seeing the therapist for a while. Maybe I do need to do more, rather than he's saying, oh, this is a great therapist. I really love them. How about I really love you? And you're important
Yes.
to me. And if you're not
Yes.
feeling safe, then what can I do? It's great. Why don't you go live with this therapist? I mean, we're not supposed to do that, but I'm
Yeah.
just saying, if I defend my friend who I went acting out with, then I say, well, I still want to be friends with him. And you're saying, but every time you went out and played golf, you acted out or talked about it. I don't think I would say, well, my friend's so important. I would say, you know what? If it makes you feel safe because I love you and our relationship to go forward, I won't spend time with him anymore. I mean, that's just a logical decision about what is really important here, who is really important here. And I think you're being pushed off for whatever reason. And I don't think you should buy it, but I'm not sure I'm going to move on yet is necessarily the answer.
Okay, the next one. My SAPA spouse continues to do concerning behaviors, and every time I speak up, he attacks me. For instance, he sleeps with his phone beside him in bed. Also, he mentioned that he wanted to go to Pittsburgh to see a football game by himself. This happens to be my hometown and also where the affair partner lives, which was also my family member. Oh gosh, I'm so
Mhm.
sorry. I told him that is unacceptable and shady behavior. He told me I was being dramatic, obsessed with her, and that I need to get over it and stop treating him bad. He said he doesn't care what anyone thinks. He can do whatever he wants because he isn't doing anything. He says he's sober, but this is horrible behavior. What do you suggest?
There's lots you can say here, Tammy. So why don't you start? I'm sure we won't be redundant.
No, I all of the defensiveness, blame shifting, minimizing, already, because you said this is horrible behavior. You know that. And just like Dr. Rob was talking about with the last one, so he wants to go to the football game and that's more important than you. You should just get over it. No addict should ever be telling a betrayed partner, well, just get over it, that is, so to me there's massive red flags. When he says he isn't doing anything, I don't well, I'm not you, but like I don't trust any of that because this feels like I'm even if he doesn't technically act out, this feels like so shady and sketchy and all of the things that you mentioned. So I would have great concern. So here's my question for you is, if you've asked him, and he's going to do it anyway, then what is the consequence? Have you stated, I've asked you about this and you're choosing to do that. So therefore the consequence is whatever you stated it's going to be, that, maybe he can sleep in another bedroom. The locks may be changed when you get home. I don't know. And I'm being a little sarcastic, but maybe not. Like, what is it you need to do to take care of you? Because he clearly is, entitled. I just read massive entitlement in that too.
And I think is abusive to you. We
Yes.
use the term gaslighting. So if you're concerned about me, and I think reasonably so, and then I turn around and say, gosh, I don't understand why you're so concerned. I'm basically telling you you're lying, you're giving me a hard time, it isn't really true. And I'm trying to manipulate how you think about it by saying it in this way. That is a great form of gaslighting. So one of the things I want to say is you're being abused. I would rather hear me, folks. I'd rather he said to you, I'm going to go to Pittsburgh and I'm going to have sex with this other woman. At least that would be honest. Then you could say, well, I'm going to do that. You could take care of yourself. By the way, you have to trust your gut. Um, even if and I'll say this, even if he's a perfect angel that whole time, even if he didn't consider your feelings. You said this makes me uncomfortable. He's an addict. He's been acting out. I'll tell you, the people I treat and work with, they know better. They know what their priority is. They know what's important, which is family. I always say my favorite four-letter word is home, HOME, and he's literally running away from home saying, I'm sure the door will be open when I get back. So I want to think just beyond he's doing whatever he wants to. I also think he is dismissing, abusing you, and telling you to not trust what you feel. Boy, do you know what's going on. So the question I would ask myself is, my husband is acting out. He's acting out by doing whatever he wants, if nothing else, but he is acting out. How am I going to handle and take care of myself? What am I going to do for me if this is going on? And by the way, you're not dramatic, you're not obsessed, and you do not need to get over it. And you're certainly not the one he's treating you, boy, gaslighting, right? He is treating you badly, but somehow he's going to convince you that you're the problem. And this is what active addicts do. We shapeshift. We're like, oh, it isn't me, it's you, because we want the finger pointed over there. And as long as we can convince you that you are overreactive or not trusting me, or we want you to doubt yourselves because I'm not attractive enough, I'm not interesting enough, I'm not this, I nag too much. Well, that makes me feel better because it is your problem. What your real problem is how do I trust my feelings and how do I take care of myself? I didn't see here, tell me, by the way, whether this partner is in a support group or what she, assumes it's a woman, is doing for herself. Because, boy, if this was going on, I would want someone to call and say, not just us, but someone who really loves and understands you, who's in recovery, and say, look, I don't know what to do. And that's really what you're saying. I don't know what to do. Well, you don't have to be alone. Addicts, you know, I want to go online. I don't know what to do. That's what we have people to support us for, because we make bad decisions without. I think you are confused and you're being confused and abused. You really need support groups and places to reach out where you can turn to other women and say, I don't know what to do. I hope you consider the Betrayed Partners work group. I think that's a great place to sit. Um, my real concern here about he's not the one who's betraying you, you're betraying you. And that's my greater concern. So yeah.
Well, and the double whammy, like I always extra cringe when it's like a family member or friend, because
Mm.
it's like, so it's your partner, your husband, spouse betrayed you, and now whether it's a good friend or a family member or whatever, somebody in close proximity knowingly chose to do that too. So there's a double betrayal, and I really hope that you're getting support around that. So yes, there's actually the Betrayed Partner work group starts tomorrow, but also, and I put the link in the chat, and then we have the boundaries groups, and Dr. Rob talked about not betraying yourself, and Debbie McCrae does a great job of teaching about internal boundaries, making sure that I am not betraying myself regardless of what someone else is doing. My focus needs to be on what do I need to do to take care of me, so that, I've got no control over that person, but so that I'm going to be okay regardless.
And I do want to say to those couples who have the resources, and I do 2-hour consultations, these are the situations where I sit with a couple and I'll say to him, what the F are you doing? I thought you cared about, I thought you wanted to be in this marriage. I thought, that may not be my response, but when I hear crazy things like this and I'm working with a couple, it's a lot easier for them, the addicts, to hear it from me than it might be. Because with you, it's like, with you guys, like, oh, I've heard all that before, or they're just nagging me again. But trust me, they talk to me, they're going to hear me in a different place than you are. So this is why I do the consults, and other people on our team do as well. Another form of kind of neutral feedback. And if, by the way, if I'm not the right person for you, Erin, who's here every other week, does amazing consultations. There's Tammy does support feedback
Support,
sessions.
yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
so
mine are different than, yeah. But I do
but just to get
individual
some of
or
what you're talking
couples,
about
and I can
tonight,
help.
yeah.
Yes, exactly. So
So
yeah,
reach out to us. It's TAMI at seekingintegrity.com.
yes.
Or if you want to find someone who can help you where you live, Tammy is very good at making referrals, because as someone said earlier, they may be the right therapist or a great therapist, but they're not right for this situation. And Tammy can help you find someone to do a consultation or whatever it is.
Okay, so then
Oh,
the
wait, there's one more
next,
thing.
go
I'm
ahead.
so
Yeah,
sorry. He attacks me.
yeah. So not
That
okay.
really got me, because, and I want you spouses to hear that, when every time, an addicts, every time we say, well, I'm going to do it anyway, we might as well have smacked you across the face. It is domestic emotional violence to attack you over your fears. So I would think about yourself being smacked around, and what would you do then if that were happening? So, okay, I'm done.
So the next one, it sounds like a statement. I ask my husband questions over and over again because this is how I confirm for myself that he is lying. Very hard for liars to keep their story straight, even in their own heads.
So Tammy, what do you think the question might be here if you were going to ask one?
I just feel bad. I don't even know. Like to me, it's like how dysregulating for you, partner. Like in your. So you and I have talked, Dr. Rob, before about like partners are looking for their addict partners to betrayed partners are looking for their addict partners to be truthful. And this one feels like the reverse. I'm sure he's lying, and so I'm going to keep asking and asking and asking and asking and asking. And I'm thinking, like we just talked about internal boundaries. I was like, I think I would be so dysregulated, going like at some point we go, yeah, he's gonna lie. What am I doing to take care of me? Like finding out the so-called truth about whatever, at what cost to you? Like if this person is not willing to be truthful yet, like that's a level of, that's a level of addiction that has not, they're either not in recovery or they're very early or whatever. They're really not working a program. But to me, I was like, what? I get sad because I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I can't imagine how hard that has to be for you, partner, to keep doing that constant confronting and keeping that in the forefront of your brain, going like, I'm just waiting. I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait. That feels, that would be hard, and that would be toxic to me. I'm just talking about me now, but that wouldn't like that amount of negativity would erode me, so what are your thoughts though on that?
Well, a bunch of different things. Just in terms of, I don't know, you didn't write anything about whether he's in recovery, working on himself, not work. So I don't know what his
Yeah.
situation is, but I do know that it is not your job to demand of him that he tell you the truth. I should just come and tell you the truth. Or if you say this is on my mind, I should just answer it. And so we are conflict avoidant for sure. We do avoid that angry face when we've disappointed you. We're like little kids. No, mom, I didn't take the cookie out of the cookie jar with all the, crumbs trailing. We want to lie because we don't want you upset with us. We don't realize that, of course, the lying makes you more upset. But ultimately, a man in recovery should come to you and say, now that you asked that. Now, the other thing, so I don't think that it's your job to demand of him. I think it's his job to show up and tell you. Um, on the other hand, I'm not sure what he's lying about, what he isn't, because you don't trust him. That may mean you don't trust anything he says. Well, there may be things he's telling the truth about, but you don't really know, and it doesn't matter if you knew because you don't trust him. So, to me, this is a couples therapy issue, by the way, if they are both working on recovery. The other thing about that I just want to say is I create a 24-hour rule. I do with my clients, and I really recommend that you partners do, which is I don't trust you right now. Or let me try it from the addict perspective. I lie when you come and you confront me or challenge me. I just want to run away. I'll say whatever it is. But I promise you that within 12 to 24 hours, whatever, I will come back and tell you the truth. In other words, they may not, in the heat of, well, what did you do? And why did you do it? They may just say, it wasn't me, but they have to come back to you. This is a boundary. You make an agreement that you will come back, and he'll tell you the absolute truth. So it isn't like he isn't getting the laser beams. But these are all things to work on if you're in recovery. I will say this though, and with all due respect to partners, the word hounded me comes up. You know, if he's lying and the truth is he's lying, you don't really need to keep pursuing it. You already know. And so, you say, how do I confirm for myself that he's lying? Well, if an addict is not in recovery, you can just assume they are. You don't even need to ask them. You can just assume they are. So, Tammy, you're going to say something about that. I just saw you.
No, I just was going like, yeah, they're absolutely lying. Denial is I'm lying to myself first. So I may even believe the lies I'm telling you, but yeah, the avoidance really feels like a factor.
I would stop asking because you don't know if what you're getting is true or not. You're kind of hounding this person they're trying to twist them into a pretzel, but may not be someone who's going to tell the truth. You guys don't really have a formal plan for how to manage and handle this. So for me as a spouse, I would say, I don't trust you. You're not sleeping in the bed, and I'm going to take care of me. And if you choose to come to me and say you're working on this, then we'll figure out a way to work on this. But I would say it just makes you crazy to ask questions, and he doesn't whatever's going on. And by the way, he may be telling the truth and you just can't hear it because he's lied for so long. So there are a lot of things. To me, this is work that you both need to do. There's no easy answer to this. But I'll tell you what, if you both aren't getting support, if he isn't going to meetings, or this is where I really get with Tammy, what difference does any of this make?
Okay, so the next one is, are any resources to find a secular sponsor in PA? I love this question, and I have the 12-step options. So there are a few programs like Celebrate Recovery that is not that is religious, shall we say. Otherwise, all of the programs are not religious, anyone of any faith or no faith. In the 12-step books, they have a chapter to the agnostic, but if you are working from, like I've shared with people, God can be good, orderly direction, which we for sure are lacking in our active addiction. So raise your hand and like find, go to a 12-step meeting and look for the people who have healthy recovery, and it's always take what you need and leave the rest.
Right.
There's people, I've seen people with deep faith in a certain religion work with people who are agnostic or people of completely opposite religion. It doesn't matter. It's about doing the work so that we can be honest and move forward. So my colleague, our colleague Scott and I did a webinar on 2/7/24 about navigating the 12 steps. I'd invite you to, we did kind of an informational thing on navigating that, but then I put the link, we have posted all of the different 12 steps, and there's PAA, SPAA, those may be useful for you, but look for healthy meetings. And we talked about how to find a healthy meeting. But we also said, if the SLAA is a great meeting on Wednesday night, and the SCA is a great meeting on Thursday night, great, but find some healthy people to connect with. Separately, we have drop-in groups on our platform that are not 12-step. Those are safe environments. They're hosted. There's volunteers that are keeping the safe space for people, and those could be another this same link as you found this. You'll see the various drop-in groups. We have separate for male addicts, female addicts, male partners, female partners. So there's all different groups, including on Tuesday night, there's one for co-occurring substance and sex or porn addiction. Thursday night is the cruise control group. So that would be for gay men. So there are unique groups within that. And then, any male, any female, so check out those different groups, by gender on our platform. So thoughts?
I just want to say number one, because I do a little research sometimes, Tammy, and secular doesn't mean that you have no faith. Secular simply means that you don't have faith in a particular religion or a particular form of what you consider God to be, but it doesn't say you don't have faith. And so I would be curious about how I can evolve faith for myself. For example, what I believe in is I'm sitting in those, I believe other things too, but I believe when I'm sitting in the room with those people and we're all holding hands and we're all trying to find healing, that the fact that a group of people is coming together, that is something bigger than me. That is, a meaningful connection power that I don't have by myself. So what I hear you saying is you're not sure what beliefs you really have. You just know that they don't belong to particular faiths. Great. The other thing is, and this is the simplest answer, it would have taken so much time, go to a 12-step meeting, raise your hand and say, hi, I'm Joe, and I'm really struggling with this higher power thing, whatever. Can I work with somebody who really, doesn't have an opinion on this or struggles with it too? To me, that's you're going to meetings, someone will come up to you and say, I did too, and this is what I'm doing, and let's sit down and talk. You have a resource, use it. I think those people, no offense to me and Tammy, but they're sitting right there with you. They'll come up to you, maybe after the meeting, if you struggle with this too. Great. I think that is the best way to get the answer you're looking for. We also have Porn Addicts Anonymous. We have Porn Addiction 101. And I think that as a work group where you might find some answers. So you do need to have a belief that there is something greater than you. For me, the simplest way is where two or more people are working on the same thing and coming together. To me, that is very obvious. There's something greater than one of them. I don't think anyone could disagree with that. You have an opinion, I have an opinion. That's more than me having an opinion by myself. So even if only to begin saying, by being in this meeting is a belief in something, you've already started. It's a great question, by the way. Yeah, and one
I'm
to
glad you asked it.
investigate.
Okay, so this one you're going to
I
love.
love this
Why do
question.
therapists tell us that the addict is not thinking of us when they're acting out? Of course, they were thinking of us. They had to think about how to lie, hide, lie, and deceive. So that is consciously thinking of us. Seems like more gaslighting of the betrayed partner by therapists. Can you help me understand this?
Sure. My favorite, a good example, of this would be alcoholism, which is we're married, we have kids. I drink and I get drunk and I get DUIs. I've lost jobs because of my drinking. I know how much this is hurting my family, and yet I drink anyway. I love my spouse. I love my children. The last thing I want to do is end up in jail, my next DUI, yet I can't stop drinking. And I do think that in a way, you can separate this question of how could you love me and do this anyway? It it's addiction. This is a disorder. It is a mental health disorder. Your partner is not well. And part of it is also that, and there's the biological, which is a longer story, but basically, when I become fixated on something, it becomes harder and harder for me to make good decisions. My simplest answer would be when I first started working here in California, and I was a teacher, and they would teach the kids when there was an earthquake to get under your desk. By the way, why do they do this? Because most people get hurt running down the hallway trying to get away from the earthquake as if they were going to get it not in the hall. And where they get hurt is pieces of glass are falling and they end up stepping on and all that stuff. So why do we rehearse with the kids over and over and over again that what they're supposed to do in the earthquake? Because in the moment it happens, everything goes out of your head, but I need to take care of myself. And what do I do? And in that moment, I start running around. There has to be enough training that if I do this, I automatically go there no matter what I'm feeling. Firemen who, would you ever want to go into that room? They're trained how to do it. So all I'm saying to you is that um, uh, that it's not that I'm doing my best to put you out of my mind or it's just automatically happened. I'm laser focused on what's in front of me. I am aroused emotionally. The part of my brain that would say, what's the best thing to do? I don't really have access to that. I am completely driven and focused on it. I'll tell you what, though, when I want to say this, the lying, the hiding, and the deception comes up after, then it's like, oh my God, how am I going to get away with this? We don't. And I'll say it another. When I used to work with addicts directly as a sponsor, they would say, "Well, I want to act out. What I can, why can't I?" And I would say, "Well, just talk to me, and if you can get me to agree, then go ahead." Um, what I had to bring them to is what was going to happen after and how it was going to affect their lives. Because up until that, addicts are just seeing, here it is. I'm a food addict. I just see that huge cheesecake, and I know I shouldn't, but I'm going to. What I try to help them see is, well, what is it going to be like after? You're going to have to lie about it. You're going to feel bad about it. So um, I do not, we are deceiving you. We are choosing to deceive you. We know we are deceiving you, but it is such a distant voice in my head. I know I'm not supposed to stand at this desk when there's an earthquake, but I feel like racing around. Well, you have to know over and over and over again what to do when you do feel in that panic. This is why we do relapse prevention with the addicts, because addiction is like a rock rolling downhill. It goes faster and faster, and then it rolls over your family and you, which is at the bottom of the hill. So we teach them, gee, if you start thinking about it, what are you going to do? If you get in your car, what are you going to do? In other words, we teach them the signs of when they are beginning to head into trouble and then what to do when they're having that sign. So I'm more interested in him learning about for himself, when am I getting in trouble? Where am I in trouble? What are my choices? How do I make better decisions? Um, because the thoughts about you are going to come later when he realizes what a shit he's been and how bad he feels about himself. Um, Tammy, you nodded your head when I said, not, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, no, no. But yeah, and it's after and if I start feeling shame about that, I'm going to quickly, like, the cycle of addiction can be really short because I'm going to keep all of that at bay. And I say this all the time to partners. You can't possibly understand this. Like, it's a mental health issue. You would never do this. You would never do this. So this is beyond your understanding and comprehension. And that's why addicts have to they don't have to, but the addicts that go to 12-step meetings and work with other people where they get it. And you can be peer accountability. And like Dr. Rob said, it's like, well, if you're going to act out, call me first. And if you can talk me into it, sure. We have to put stuff in between us and the acting out. And and I'm sorry that it isn't you. I wish every addict would go, oh, I need to think about my partner, my spouse, my family, my job, my whatever.
That would be
And we
nice.
don't. I know. Yeah. Well,
There's no
then we would
medication
be
for
out.
that.
Yeah,
In
exactly. Then
fact,
we would
that's
be
why
out
we
of a
go to
job. And
meetings.
yes.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, because we constantly have to be reminded. By the
Yes.
way, I want to give another example. So we talked about alcohol. Do I care about your drink anyway? Yes and yes. What if you had someone who is in domestic violence and they hit you? Does that mean they don't love you? They don't care about you, or does that mean they're so out of control and broken that they do things that are deeply harmful to you? I would say that the majority of men that I've heard about, talked to, gotten involved with, they really did love their spouse. They really did want things to work out, but there was something in them that they just didn't know how to manage, didn't know how to see the rage coming, how to deal with it, and they hit you. And I hope that you went got help and all, but nonetheless, they still have feelings for you. But in that moment when they're so enraged, they don't have the ability, they haven't learned how to manage those feelings. So I don't think it's just this. I think there are a lot of places where people make decisions that they know are not good ones, and they go ahead and do it anyway for a whole bunch of reasons. Um, yeah.
And your addict can't make what they've done unhappen. It's happened. And learning to live in recovery, learning to choose a different path. And that's what it is. We have to learn to choose the different path. We have to give ourselves that little bit of time to slow things down and to go, like Dr. Rob said, it's like, think it through. How am I, like, in the moment, I'm going to be completely offline brain wise, but how am I going to feel afterwards? Our colleague Scott, has talked about, like, he being in the bubble, and like he doesn't remember the drive from home to, to the acting out, to the drugs, whatever it was. Zero recollection of any of that, and then having to deal with the, consequences afterwards. So it, and again, I apologize. You can't understand it, because you would never do this stuff, and so it's very challenging for partners, because like it's like we have a crazy head, and we do, and I've shared
And
this before. My
go
my
ahead, Tammy.
husband
I'm
and
sorry.
daughter, who have never known me in active addiction, I said something, I don't remember what it was about, didn't matter, but they both looked at me, and they had this quizzical look on their face, and they go, you think differently. And I go, yeah, I do. I am an addict. I will always be an addict. I have learned, and I know when to reach out. I know lots of good things, and every now and then I need to make amends because I do something that is outside how I want to show up for people. So, but I've learned that, and other people can too. I hope he chooses it.
I don't think therapists are gaslighting you, by the way. There is proof, brain science, neurological science, that when someone gets to that state of consciousness and their heart is pounding, that they really are unable to make good decisions. But then when all that's gone, they realize what the F was with me. I didn't make good decisions. So anyway, let's keep moving.
Okay,
I'm so
my part.
frustrated we don't have more time, I have to
I
say.
know. Yeah. My partner and I are approaching reunification day, 4 months after discovery and therapeutic separation. We are both working with individual and group therapies and approaching this with cautious optimism. Is there any advice you could give that would help us before as we reunite?
Well, I don't exactly know what reunite means. It could be we've been living
They've been
apart and
on,
we're.
yes, they've been on therapeutic separation. So it sounds like they've been in different households. So
I see.
yeah.
Um, and I'm going to let you take this first. I really
I
need to think
yeah,
about
no, like, well,
this.
this one to me is follow the plan. If there's a therapeutic separation, there was a plan of, this is what we're looking to see, as we reunite, and there would be, stated, behaviors, goals, actions, about how, this is going to come together. So I would, you're working with professionals, and if you've got a solid therapeutic a separation plan, there, the reunification would be part of that. So Dr.
Mhm.
Stevie Hall and Lindsay Stanley did a webinar with me and a podcast with Dr. Rob that I don't think is posted yet. That's part of the
Oh,
glitch, but
right.
yeah,
I love this one
I know, but they did a whole webinar on that, and they're coming back because
on
there was enough
therapeutic
questions
separation.
on therapeutic separation.
Right.
But they talked about, the workbook, and the workbook would have the plan. So I would, I love that you're optimistic and cautious. That's fantastic. That will serve you well. And betrayed partner, pay attention with your eyes what the actions are, not what the words are. So if you are seeing actions that are that are moving things forward, and that there's accountability, that's great. But listen to your internal sense on that too. That's my thoughts.
And the word boundaries comes to mind for me, for you. We do this in treatment. We ask people, we bring the spouses with you while you're finishing up treatment, and we say out to the addict, and we say, okay, to the spouse, what is okay with you and what isn't? And if this happens, how are you going to deal with it? And what do you feel safe? So I would really want to have boundaries about, if this happens, if I see this start to, what am I going to do? How am I going to do it? Because I agree with Tammy, and this is really important. In the moment, oh my God, we did all this work and we're together again, and this happened. So rather than respond, and I also hear from you guys, if this ever happens again, I'm going to leave you. Well, maybe that isn't what you really mean to say. So, or by the way, I would say, if you say it, you better leave, because we sure learned from that as addicts. Oh, they just don't, they'll not take care of themselves. But anyway, I think having boundaries, talking about it with him having boundaries. I'll come to you if, there, I don't think it's just, I hope things get better, or we worked really hard and now things are going to be better. The real work starts as you're coming back together. I would start with boundaries. I'd run them by someone else. Boundaries are for yourself. What do I feel safe with? And then anyway, that's my contribution. Oh,
And
there's
it's really easy to fall into comfortable patterns. So
mm,
for each and both of you. So I think being very cautious and paying attention to, are we just falling back into the patterns the roles that we used to do, that can be a bit of a challenge. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
no, I'm just thinking about how, not just about the boundaries, but about, what do you want and what do you expect? Not only what I don't want, but part of my boundaries, I expect you. One of the things I say to the addicts when they're coming out of treatment is, I want you to create a piece of paper. I know that's shocking, on a piece of paper. And I want you to write Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And I want them to write one thing that they're going to do for recovery, concrete. Pardon me, I'm going to a meeting, I'm talking to a therapist, I'm sitting and journaling, whatever it is, so that you, the spouse, if it says Monday at 4 o'clock, you can look over and say, you don't even need to ask what we're doing. You know that we're doing it. And simple things like that, telling you what we're going to do and showing up for it, is tremendously. And in this situation, that my boundary is that I want to see you doing this and that and this and that. If that doesn't happen, then I'm not, then whatever the other side of it is. So, oh, one more thing. Sorry. Specific issues need to be addressed. And Tammy mentioned this, for example, sex. Are we going to have sex? Are we not going to have sex? What circumstances? Another boundary. We're feeling closer and I want to be sexual with, I don't feel safe. How are you going to negotiate that? So specific things that may come up and related to acting out, but are typical in a relationship. Okay, let's keep moving.
Okay. Yes. And I love this next question too. Betrayed partner here. I've heard Dr. Rob talk on podcasts about why saying I'll never do this again isn't the big inspiring and hopeful sign the addicts
Mm-mm.
think it is. Can you talk about the impact of this on the partner spouse regardless of the stage of recovery?
Well, I think, and I don't know if I'm answering this correctly, Time, but every spouse wants to hear, this will never happen again. Um, if someone I love has cancer and they're in remission, I would never, as a partner, hope that they go out of remission. It would constantly be. So I think to say this is never going to happen is to try to predict the future. And I tell you what, I don't know what the future is. None of us really do. So it feels right. It reassures you. Basically, what I want to say is, you should just shut up and don't bring this up anymore, because I've got this handled. That doesn't make you feel safe. Um, they don't have something to do if they struggle. So when someone says, look, this is a repetitive chronic disorder, you have to learn how, not just how to live with it. It's diabetes. You can't just say, well, I'm better this week, but so next week I don't have to, take my medication. Or it just couldn't possibly be true. And I would feel very unsafe unless someone embraced the fact this is a lifelong problem. It's not about what makes you feel good. And even in the moment, I may think, okay, I've got this. But if you think that, then you don't, because the word humility comes to mind. I have loved you and I have cared about you, and yet I've done all this stuff anyway. And I'm quite troubled. And I don't know that in the right circumstances I might do it again. So I have to tell you, I will do this. I'll go to 12-step meetings, I'll get support, I'll go to therapy. I can promise you those things, and you could see them on the refrigerator. But am I going to go drink again? As Tammy says, I think I don't have to say this for you. Tammy, are you ever going to drink again?
today I'm doing what I need to do to take care of myself, but am I don't tell my husband or anybody that I will never ever drink again or do any of my other acting out behaviors. But I'm going to do what I need to do today to take care of myself, and that's my little insurance policy. And so
And
far,
if
it's
it
worked.
happens, I'll tell you.
Yes, yeah. And
Mhm.
thus far, I haven't had to do that because it's one of those things where I, I mentioned earlier, denial is the biggest factor in addiction. And if I'm lying to myself and going, "Oh, I'm doing great," and I say this all the time, and I say this in 12-step meetings too, is like addiction 12-step is one of those places where everything's going really great. My life is, turning back around because I did these things. And so then in addiction, we go, so I don't need to do those things. And then our life falls apart again. And then we're going like, how did that happen? Because we quit doing the things that work for us. So why would I not? My life is too darn good. Why would I ever want to not keep doing this, this pattern of things that helps me? Why would I want to jeopardize everything for whatever, to watch TV instead of go to a 12-step. I like going to 12-step meetings. So,
Well, and to say that that I've got this means, well, I probably don't need to do much more about it because I've
oh
got
yeah,
this.
yeah, I
And
got
so
this.
I'm fine. And this is a perfect example of a partner wanting to say, an addict wanting to say, you don't need to worry about this anymore. You don't need to be upset about this anymore because I've handled this. I understand what you're saying, which is, how can I deal with the fact that it might happen again? I want reassurance. I would too. I really think the best way to think about it is mental illness. I've been depressed before. Trust me, I have gotten in bed and not wanted to get out. Tammy could say to me, are you you're not are you gonna get depressed again? Absolutely not. I'm not going to. Well, someone might die. My medication may be wrong. I might get depressed again because I have an emotional illness. Addiction is emotional illness. I cannot promise you that I won't do this. I can promise you I'll take medication. I can promise you I'll talk to my therapist. I can promise you I'll let you know, but I can't promise you it's not going to happen again. And it really, I think when you take your emotional self out of it, and it isn't, how could you do this to me again? But it's how did you end up in a place where you weren't taking care of yourself? So words don't matter. I wouldn't believe this. What I would believe is, I can see you're working on it. Why work on it? Because I never know what's going to happen again. I have to constantly, our brains are, we don't get rid of addiction. It is with us all of our lives. We can keep it in remission. Um, so I can't possibly promise you that, by the way, am I going to be alive tomorrow? I don't know. I can't, so
We sure
I,
hope so.
some days, yes, sometimes not. But in any case, do you know how to be alive, Tammy? Because I love working with you. We have so much fun together.
We
I
do, and we've got a
live
lot of
just
work
for
to
this.
do. So,
We
well,
do.
yeah, we've got so many. Trust us, we have so many projects coming up that are exciting, and so please keep coming back. I am saddened that we are not going to get to all the questions. But yeah, please bring them back. Join other webinars and things too. But and with this question with a partner too, you know, like you can take care of you. Dr. Rob, I'll real quick share this. Dr. Rob just talked about, in a group where someone acted out, and he was working with betrayed partners, and his husband acted out, and she was like, "I'm leaving him into this," and an older person who'd been around a little bit longer was like, that's on him. I'm not going to ruin my life and disrupt my whole life because of that. That was a partner that had found boundaries and stability and joy regardless of what he's doing. That's his work to do. So the crux of it
Mhm.
is, what do you need to do to take care of you, and either stay in a relationship with somebody who is completely, like you can't know for sure. You'll pay attention and you'll start to feel things, but there's no guarantees. There's just no guarantees on any of those things. So, what do you need to do to take care of you regardless of what he's doing or not doing? So
I know we have to go, but there's 40 people in here. Could we take one more question, Tammy? Would that be, I don't know what
I
your
can,
schedule
yeah.
is.
No,
Okay, no, I don't have to walk the dog tonight, so I'm good.
no. Okay. Partner of an SAPA. Is it realistic to ask my partner to leave his job where he sexually acted out for a long time? His work environment also happens to have a lot of women who dress very provocatively. He has been in recovery, but it ebbs and flows, relying a lot on white knuckling at times. The job market is tough. I see him applying for new jobs, but part of me worries that he truly doesn't want to find a new job. My nervous system is a wreck daily. Major anxiety. Would it be extreme to ask him to leave the house until he finds a new job?
Well, there's a lot of questions in here, I
Yes.
think. And so where I go with this is does he realize the consequences of the position he's putting himself in? Because whether you work with someone or you're a boss or, he's done this in the workplace. You think everyone doesn't know that? You think everyone hasn't talked about it? And by the way, if he's acted out with more than one person, they're probably going to talk to each other. And, I don't know the circumstances, but I've seen a lot of lawsuits come up around, oh, well, I didn't want to do this. And, and I'm not saying that people lie. I'm just saying he may not see things as clearly as he thinks he does. So one of my concerns is, how is he putting your family, your finances, your home, whatever it is, at risk with a Me Too kind of situation? Because let me tell you, if someone has been used like that, they don't just go after business. They go after you. They go after the house. They go after everything. The lawyers do. So, but white knuckling. I've seen people sell their house. I've seen people move out of town. I have seen people cut off relationships that were really meaningful. What matters is what is he willing to do for himself to make your relationship work and make you feel safe? What makes you feel safe? Now, I don't know. I would never feel. It's like the guy going to Pittsburgh. I could never feel comfortable with this situation ever. And by the way, what the women wear, that's not anybody, that's up to them. They can wear whatever they want. It's easy to judge, well, this person is doing that, but they're not triggering him. And if they are, that's his responsibility. But my concern is he's putting himself in a situation where he's acted out already. I'm not sure if he isn't still acting out. I don't know. I don't see anything about program partners, healings, therapists. I certainly wouldn't ask him to leave until I had some feedback on how to best manage this. Because I don't know. And I don't know about the job market. Tammy, do you have any? I think
Oh, I
there's,
like the biggest thing to me is, his ebbs and flows. Like if he, the workplace, there's going to be females everywhere. Like at some point, they aren't the problem, he's the problem. And what I hear, my issue is he's not doing everything he can, really getting a solid foundation of recovery, so that he's building some foundation for himself so that he can navigate. There are all kinds of precautions he can set up in any workplace. So I hear you being incredibly triggered. So I would love for you to do self-care, have healthy boundaries for you. What are you doing to take care of you so that your nervous system isn't, so frayed? Because you cannot possibly think straight. It's impossible.
every time he leaves the
If
house.
yes, exactly. So that isn't good for anybody. But I'm angry that he isn't going, oh my gosh, I have got to, I've got to call my sponsor. I've got to do 90 meetings, and I have got to get this recovery stuff so that I'm setting up, then he would have a relapse prevention plan. He would have a sponsor. He can be, I'm going into a meeting, and I'm going to keep the door open on the meeting. I mean, like, there's all kinds of things that you can do to navigate this world, in a healthy way, so, because guess what? If he gets another job, he can start this pattern all over again. And because he's the problem, his behaviors are the problem, and he hasn't chosen to shore up and have a solid foundation, for making changes. So, so wherever he goes, I
Problem
can't
follows.
imagine. Yeah, yeah. I was gonna say, I can't imagine your nervous system will be, because there'll be other people, and how is he gonna, perceive them and all. So yeah, I hope he chooses to really lean in and get the help that he needs. So he's got a solid thing. We have all kinds of resources, free, low cost, all kinds of stuff that would really help him. That's on him. So to me, the boundary would be, I need to see, in order to build trust, in order to regulate, I need to see that you're doing something that's going to change this, because yeah, just quitting his job in a tough job market, then, it does put your whole financial situation, at risk too. So, but enough said,
Well,
he's a problem.
I do want to say one more thing, which is um, how, the job, he can go to work at Starbucks. you know, I don't know what your financial circumstance, maybe he needs to work 3 jobs to make up for his not having the finance, but it doesn't mean there isn't a job market. Trust me, there's lots of jobs out there. I see help wanted signs everywhere, but maybe he isn't going to get that executive managed position like he has now. Almost every spouse I've talked to has said, you know, if we, and I'm not asking you this, if we have to reduce our living circumstances, if we have to spend less money, if I would rather be in that situation than you're constantly leaving us, you know, in this tragic, you know, situation where I'm nervous every day. Or so could he get a job? Sure. If it doesn't pay enough, could he get 2 or 3? Yes. Would that solve the problem? In a heartbeat. So how willing is he to say, I want you to feel safe and I will, no matter what it takes, I will find other circumstances. Well, he can apply to jobs while he's doing other things. So I just question this. I can't find another job. The job market is tough. What I think is I want this job that meets what I've been or what I've been doing or my skills or, well, that's nice. We all want things, but does he want you to feel safe more? Um, and I would never feel safe every time he walked out the door and every time he came home. The questions would just rack my brain. By the way, I hope you're not having sex with him because I don't know else if this is going on or not, but if he's not making the decision to put you first, then all bets are off. Besides, for his recovery, why would he want to put himself in a situation like this? Because my decision would be, what can I do to stay sober no matter what? And this would not be a sober situation for me. Anyway, thanks, Tammy. Appreciate your
Thank you,
staying.
Dr. Rob.
We'll check in
Yes,
tomorrow, I'm sure.
please do write us, come back. We'll be around. All right. Bye, everyone.